Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is going on, Lock Shoppers? I am back, and it is good to be back. Although I would prefer not to be talking to Patty or Jake tonight after the Leafs of all teams and the Jets' undefeated run to the start of the season. I'll have to own that. Big news coming out of the Oiler game last night, and the losing to Columbus, far from the biggest concern to Oiler fans. We'll touch on that. Monday Night Football, a little more recap from the NFL, a week look at Week 9 lines. But right out of the gate, before I even officially welcome in Pat Gregoire, I want to remind you that tonight is the third edition of the Lock Shop Poker Series. I know Dusty is a little under the weather right now. I don't think that's going to prevent him from throwing down with all of us tonight. Myself, Remus, Iwanik, Dusty, some of the other EST guys will all be in there. It starts at 8 p.m. in Edmonton, 9 p.m. here in Winnipeg. And what you need to do is you go to Coolbet, click on the poker, and then download the poker app. By far the best way to play. Register. It's 20 euros, which comes out to about $30. And the first two have been an absolute blast. I know we'll have many of our regulars back in, and hopefully if you missed the first couple, you can join us tonight. So set an alarm and get right now, download that poker app over on Coolbet, register, because tonight we're going to be throwing down again. And of course, there's bounties on myself, Dustin Nielson, and some of the other characters from both Edmonton Sports Talk and Winnipeg Sports Talk. So it is all there. What's up to everybody in chat? And what's up to my man, Pat Gregoire? Let's just focus on Monday Night Football, over 3.5 field goals as well. What's going on? How are you?
Doing good, Huss. It's great to have you back. I think Jake Bold-Moss is probably in the chat, so I got to ask him a question. Is there anything better than beating the Jets? Let's not forget.
Is there anything better than beating the number one team in the league? No, I understand. You have to look up at the top of the standings and set goals for your team. And after coming off successive losses to Columbus and St. Louis, and then blowing a late lead to Boston, I guarantee the one thing I will say, I bet neither of you were feeling too good with about 90 seconds in the game last night.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jake and I were talking yesterday on the Lock Shop with Maddie, saying that this is the ultimate Leaf spot. Everyone is down out on them. They lose to two inferior teams. Greg Berube revenge game they can't get up for. Then they lose to Columbus, who maybe Columbus is a wagon because they knocked off the Oilers in convincing fashion yesterday. Then they go into Boston. They blow a lead once again in the Garden. Everyone's so low on the Leafs, and then you go out to Winnipeg, the hottest team in the NHL, and we had a feeling that they were going to come out with a victory. The only thing that would be more of an ultimate Leaf spot is playing that good for 2.5 periods and then blowing it and allow Winnipeg to tie the game. That would have been the only more Leafy thing to happen. But no, in all seriousness, that was a great game. Like that first period by the Leafs, like they dominated play. Then you got the pushback from the Jets. Like I think to put it simple, like those are two very good hockey clubs going toe to toe. I thought it was a great game, a really entertaining game. Anytime you get two Canadian teams, the building was rocking. It sounded awesome.
Was it ever?
It was a really good atmosphere. And this, I know it's a team against the East and the West, and you only see each other twice, but butting into a pretty good rivalry between the two teams and the two fan bases. But since that, I'm not letting Scheifele off the hook. Since that clip dropped on Jets TV back in 2021, Toronto is 6-0 against the Jets. And I've outscored them. Yes, there was a tweet out from Jeff Follett last night, and I've outscored them 22-11. So Leafs, hey, that clip might be living rent free on our head, but for a good reason. It's awesome. It's great. This is what makes hockey so fun in this country with the cross country rivalries. But all in all, great game, massive win. Like, let's be honest. Like the Jets, They're due for a loss. They weren't going to go 82-0. And the Leafs desperately not only needed that win, Huss, they needed to win, look good, close out a game, which, they got that pushback from the Jets and were able to close things up. And I think it was a good result for the Leafs, but at the same time, I don't think anyone in Winnipeg's pushing the emergency button here because they've lost one game.
No, listen, and I think, any Canadian team, and like the Habs are sort of in this category, but it seems like now, just because the Leafs have been competitive, at least in the regular season for the last number of years, and the Habs sort of haven't been. Listen, there's always a lot of Leaf fans come in, and you're like, I was flying back last night, and I watched the first period of Sportsbook, and then was sort of in transit in the second period, and then luckily, one of our listeners that was also on the flight had a VPN on his phone. So we were actually able to get the Amazon Prime broadcast. So we were just watching it as we waited to come on. And, listen, it was awesome to see the team come back after, the first period was ugly. That was as bad a period as they played and got handled in the entire season so far this year. And obviously Kyle Connor, our takeaways, and we'll get into this far more on WST today and hear from our Neil and whatnot. Like last year, Pat, the Jets were a team that at 5-on-5 was as good as anybody in the NHL, but their special teams sucked. And that wasn't really historically the case. This year, the 5-on-5 play and the numbers, the analytics and all that are nothing like what they were last year. Mm-hmm. But this team absolutely kills teams with the man advantage and has done a pretty damn good job on the power play as well. And Kyle Connor is just feeling it right now. He had 3 last night. That release that he's got is just absolutely world class.
I think it was Jody Shelley on the broadcast last night, and I know there was a little bit of mixed opinions on the broadcast. Some people were having some audio issues. I had no problems with it. I really enjoyed the broadcast. That's twice now the Leafs have played. I think Jake's trying to protest right now outside of MLSE to get them change every single game on Amazon so they can go undefeated the rest of the year. But I've enjoyed it. And I thought Shelley last night on the broadcast, I think it was him, just talked about how Connor in all 3 of his goals maybe had a collective half a second, maybe a full second on his stick. It was just like in and out, quick, bang, 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 just such a quick release. That power play, you're totally right. It's automatic right now. And even the 6-on-5 extra attacker goal, and then one with the delayed penalty as well. Like 5-on-5, I thought the Leafs did a pretty good job stifling that offense. But as soon as they took a penalty, I'm like, well, it's going to be in the back of the net, because with the way that those guys have been snapping it around, with the way that, Connor is shooting the puck right now, like, man, I wish I got on those over bets for his goals and for his points. I know a couple of your guests on your show were saying, like, absolutely, this could be a breakout year. I know it's early, but man, oh man. And by me saying breakout, I don't mean he's broken out for a while, but I'm talking like potentially winning the Rocket Richard, or at least getting fighting 50 for a spot. Like getting 50 is absolutely in the question if this guy can stay healthy.
Yeah. So, obviously that was big. The one thing I will say back to the Canadian fans is, like, if there's one game that you don't want to lose at home, it's the Leaf game. But I will say that I'm talking to some people that went to it. They said it was a hell of a night. And listen, when it's 4-0, there's probably a lot of people that were either just groaning, I can't believe I'm putting myself through this, having to be around all these Leaf fans and getting our asses kicked. So the fact that they came back, made it a game, certainly was great for the broadcast, certainly was great for people in the building, still counts as a loss in the standings. But as you said, at a certain point, that was going to happen.
Huss, I got to ask you though, quickly, is that your first loss in like multiple weeks between all 3 of your teams, the Bombers, the Chiefs, and the Jets? Like, when was the last loss? Like
the last Argos, loss for any of those teams. The Bombers have lost once in the last basically 3 months. That was 3 weeks ago at the home game against the Argos. But that's it.
It's not.
The Chiefs haven't lost since last Christmas. The Jets started off 8-0, and obviously the playoffs was a big but against Colorado. But they also finished the regular season on an 8-0 run. Like they had actually won 16 straight regulation games.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been I've been living a charmed life lately, and sometimes you got to take your medicine. And I guess that was it last night from the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, we'll get to. I want to get into some NFL talk and look ahead to these lines for the upcoming week. But just while we're here, busy night in the National Hockey League last night for a Monday. I mean, we're all over it. Couple things to get to. Vegas beats Calgary 5-0, and I was at a couple of the games on the weekend there. This is a team. I felt bad for Ottawa, and Ottawa is it's a talented team that just still does not know how to win at that level. I mean, the game that I was at on Friday, they've got a 1-goal lead. The final TV timeout comes out. It was gone. So we're basically talking 5 minutes left. And it just felt like Vegas was going to win the whole time. Like, even though Ottawa was playing well, bang, they get one. And when they get one, they get more. They scored 3 goals in like 2 minutes. And next thing you know, it was they ran away with it. They smoked the Sharks, who are not really an NHL caliber team. Although, congratulations, San Jose, on your first win of the season last night, 5-4 over Utah HC. But Calgary gets whitewashed yesterday, 5-0 in Vegas. The Knights are rolling right now, and Aiden Hill had a really good game. You know what's funny? I was waiting for Lawless after the game on Friday before we went out for dinner, and they were giving me the business to leave this area that they were shutting down. I said, listen, I'm waiting for a big shot here. So just, he goes, oh, okay. Well, hey, listen, when you're talking to Gary, do me a favor. Ask him why Aiden Hill gives up 3 goals or more in every one of his starts. I kind of laughed. I didn't really know what it is. So I said to him, he's like, really? And then I'm looking, Aiden Hill shutout last night. Although Calgary only got 16 shots on net in that one. That's a little bit tough. The Canucks lose in OT last night. The Avalanche. Now, the Avalanche have had a pretty middling start, and I know they've got some injury issues. That's a tough pill to swallow, losing at home to the Blackhawks, who hadn't won in about 2.5 weeks last night, 5-2. So they're just at 5-5 right now. The Predators, the big Stamkos homecoming last night. I didn't see much of that. I'm listening to some guys talk about it this morning. The Lightning get the win 3-2. Obviously, we touched on that tough night for the Oilers, who were 4-5-1. And the Panthers are the Sabres are 4-5-1 after losing. I got to say quickly on the Florida Panthers, Pat, very, very impressed. Listen, there was legitimate wonders. Okay, how are the Oilers going to do coming out of the gate? They had that incredible run to Game 7. That can weigh on a team, a short off season. And we've seen the Oilers have had a slow start. I think we can all fairly say that. The Panthers, even without Barkov for 3 weeks, are still taking care of business right now, 7-3-1. I know we've seen at times like New Jersey, the lowest odds in the East. To me, it's Florida Panthers and everybody else right now. I mean, not only are they doing it right now, but we absolutely know that come playoff time, they've been there, they know what it takes, and they can do it again, as hard as it is to repeat.
Yeah, Huss, it's so funny you brought up the Panthers, because I was kind of going through some futures odds because I had a feeling maybe we would take a look at some of the resets here. And I've already placed a bet here because this doesn't make sense. And I know it's my beloved Toronto Maple Leafs sitting atop, but the Leafs have the shortest odds to win the Atlantic right now, and they're not even in the top 2. Florida's plus 230 to win that division. That makes no sense to me. The only way that, like, maybe some bigwig came in here and dropped a nuke on the Leafs and it shift the odds, but that doesn't make any sense to me, especially when you look. And again, yes, it's regular season. So, but right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs at Coolbet are plus 450 to win the East. The Panthers are plus 600 to win the East. That's including the playoffs. So that's not even regular season. But I've already made a bet on the Atlantic Division winner because I saw it this morning, I had to jump on that with the Panthers. You mentioned it. Like Barkov comes last night, gets 1-1. Reinhardt's got 16 points already. Like he is lighting it up.
I don't know if I've ever seen this before, Pat. Now that you bring this up. So the Atlantic, Toronto plus 180, Florida plus 230. Eastern Conference, Toronto, the favorite right now, plus 450. Panthers 6-1. Cup odds to win the whole thing. Panthers are 10-1, and the Leafs are 12.
I know. Well, I think the one thing with the Atlantic Division, it's regular season. So if the Leafs fizzle out in the first round or the second round, doesn't really matter. But
usually
seeing
conference odds are, so those might actually be switched. Like I'm just thinking right now, like let's just take another team. Like the Oilers are 4-1 to win the West, plus 750. The Avalanche are 7-1 and 12-1. Dallas is plus 450 and plus 11-1. There is a lot of, I don't know what this says is they think the Leafs might have a good run in them, but they're far more likely to win the East, but not win the Stanley Cup going up against an Edmonton or a Dallas or maybe the Winnipeg Jets. Who knows? Although the Jets,
Winnipeg, I was just going to say maybe.
Well, they've moved from 25 to 22. But
but still, you and I know, and everyone who's a WST in the chat right now know that the sportsbook always disrespects this Winnipeg team. And even during the regular season, I think now we're finally seeing them. I mean, it took them an 8-0 run, a 9-0 run to get some respect. But the Leafs last night, I said it on the show yesterday. The Leafs were the underdog, but they were still minus 109, I think it was, whereas the Jets were minus 115 at one point. So
I was going to ask you about that because in Vegas at a couple of the books, and I didn't bet the game just because I knew I'd basically be getting on a plane when it ended, so there was no chance to cash a ticket. And I couldn't log into Coolbet just because of the geo blocking. But the Leafs were actually at a few books kind of minus 120 and the Jets are even money.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, there's still I think people kind of look at the teams that the Jets have beat so far and maybe said, well, we still want to wait. They're still on a little bit of a wait and see. Or just they're not a very public team and not bet very much. And maybe it takes a little bit longer. And being said, some interesting numbers right now. If you want to go check out those futures. Let's do a quick little refresh here and get these games coming up for tonight. Pat, if you want to, do me a favor, pull up Daily Faceoff and just grab the starting goaltenders while I go through these lines. So we start off Philly-Boston, the Bruins, minus 159, Philly plus 135. We have the Kraken in Montreal to take on the Habs. This is interesting. Kraken minus 172. Habs plus 145 as a home dog. I had to actually maybe consider Montreal in that. You have to like the number for being at home. The Ducks, a big dog, plus 205 on the road against the Islanders. Islanders up minus 250. St. Louis is in Ottawa. The Sens are minus 175. The Blues plus 148. The Minnesota Wild have had a great start to the season. I mean, they're hanging right there with Winnipeg and Dallas near the top. They did just lose their first in reg a few days ago to the Philadelphia Flyers. They're in Pennsylvania on the other side of the state, taking on the Penguins. The Wild minus 119. Pittsburgh plus 101. We've got the Rangers and Capitals. New York minus 151. The Caps plus 128. They're trying to start a new winning streak after having their 5-game win streak snapped in their last outing. And then you've got the Kings, massive minus 286 road favorites against the Sharks, who played last night. One other thing, there is, this, I guess, when does the Global Series start? I
believe it's November 1st.
Okay. So they're getting out there. So they do have, they do. Well, listen, we'll get to these in a minute, but roll through these goalies if you don't mind for who's going tonight.
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with the Wild Penguins game. Marc-Andre Fleury going up against Joel Blomqvist. In St. Louis and Ottawa, you've got Joel Hofer for the Blues, and Linus Ullmark is taking the cage for the Senators. Ducks at Islanders. It's Dostal taking on Sorokin. Dostal is unconfirmed at this point, but they're expecting him to start. Seattle at Montreal. Montembeault is confirmed. Philip Grubauer is unconfirmed, but expected to play. Flyers at the Bruins. Korpisalo in net for the Bruins, and Samuel Ersson is in for the Flyers. Both those goaltenders are confirmed. New York at Washington. It's Shesterkin taking on Thompson. Both of those goalies are confirmed. And then in the last game here, Kings at the Sharks. Darcy Kemper unconfirmed for the Kings, and Vitek Vanacek unconfirmed for the Sharks.
We may have to put together. I mean, there's a bunch of games here tonight. I actually don't mind.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. Joey Decord, I think, is awesome. Grubauer, so much. Seattle's lost 3 in a row. The Habs have actually won their last couple of games. They've got their guy playing. They're going to be at home tonight at plus 145. Just on the surface of that, I love the value of Montreal, albeit being, we're probably looking at a bigger number and maybe a little bit riskier, but the Habs in that spot, Seattle starting a road trip on a 3-game losing streak. I don't mind. Interested about this Wild Pittsburgh game. Fleury coming back to Pitt.
Yep, you're reading my mind, buddy.
The Wild coming off of that loss to Philly, and let's just quickly check out the Penguins. The Penguins have really struggled so far this year. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They got swept that entire. Listen to this. This is the road trip. A 4-3 loss to Vancouver, 4-0 to Edmonton in a game I'm sure the guys on Edmonton Sports Talk talked about it. We watched it in Vegas. I mean, I think at one point the shots were 26-4 or 5, and it was still 0-0 at that time.
Yeah.
And then the dam broke. They lost to the Flames, and then they lost to the Jets. In some ways, I look at this realizing that the Penguins have to be playing with some serious urgency right now. And again, there's always probably some nerves of Fleury going back. What do you where are you at on this Minnesota Pittsburgh game?
I'm thinking I want to roll, and it's kind of juicy here, minus 119 for a team on the road coming from the West Coast. But you mentioned it, the Wild. This is a legit team. This is a good hockey club. Yes, there are some nerves, but it's Marc-Andre Fleury, man. The guy's got ice water in his veins. Kirill Kaprizov is one of the best players on the planet right now. I kind of want to go Minnesota Wild in the revenge spot. And I don't even want to call it a revenge spot because it wasn't really
his final visit to Pittsburgh.
But it's going to be that's going to be his last time in Pittsburgh. So maybe do you go in reg for Minnesota to win at plus 135, or do you just take the money line at minus 119? I think Minnesota's a better hockey team. I think Marc-Andre Fleury is going to want to end his career, his last game inside that building with a win. Pretty classy move for Minnesota to make sure that they do that as well. I think they'll be playing hard for him. There's going to be money on the board for Flower. So I think I've just talked myself into it. I think you got to go the Wild here. I get it. The Penguins got a lot of urgency, but it's a better hockey team, and there's a lot of emotional value behind this game tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. So are you down with a little flyer on the Habs and the Wild?
You know what? I could go with that. I mean, it kills me to ride with the Canadians, but the way that you laid it out makes a lot of sense to me. I'm really high on this Montembeault kid. I know he had the best career.
You guys saw him in game 1 of the season.
Yeah, but I've watched some more games, and the kid is legit. I think he's going to be a really good goalie. So
he might be Canada's goalie.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if your buddy in Vegas keeps saying that, Aiden
Hill lets in 3 goals.
Aiden Hill's 3 goals. Start. I'm fine with that. I could roll with that. If we want to go with that, do we want to go a 2-gamer here with those two? Or do you want to throw another one?
I say we get a third game, but I mean, we've got a plus 145 and one that's closer to a pick 'em.
Plus 351 right now with just
what
those
do we think about the Rangers in Washington? They've won 6 of 7. They've been amazing. And I mean, I know Washington's actually had some good results lately, but man, when I look at their team compared to, like, who did they beat? They beat the Golden Knights. They had a nice win against the Stars. They beat the Devils 6-5 and then 2 wins against the Flyers. But then they got shut out by the Lightning, and now they're back at home tonight. I just look at what the Rangers have done so far and what they're throwing out every night. To me, kind of the same thing when you were thinking about Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. At a certain point, like, who is the better team? Like, let's identify that first. And to me, it's absolutely the Rangers. I mean, if we put New York on at minus 151, it takes it to plus 649.
Okay.
Do you have any objections on the Rangers?
No, the Rangers last year, including the playoffs, were 6-2 against the Caps. And I know the Caps were a much worse team last year, but it's a divisional matchup. They've had the better hand of them. I'm okay with going with the Rangers here, especially in if we just don't go in reg, go minus 151.
Just a straight money line bet. Did you say Shesterkin's in?
And Shesterkin's in. So, I mean, how could you not?
Let's do it. All right. We'll see what Jake, but I'm pretty sure Jake's in the chat right now. Jake, if you want to throw this down, Habs plus 145, Wild minus 119, Rangers minus 151. We'll get that up for
one other thing I wanted to mention as well, and we didn't really talk about this game. Briefly, we did the Flyers at the Bruins. Matevy Michkov minus 133 for a point and plus 235 for a goal. I've been very impressed with this kid, man. Like, this kid is legit. I know you were really high on him in your future show. I think you and Dusty were both on overs, but on different sides. I think one of you guys had goals, the other guys had points. So, and I'll be honest, again, I was at a wedding on Saturday, so I didn't get to watch the full Bruins Leaf game, but like, this is not the big bad Bruins of the past. Like, this is not as good as a Bruins team. With that being said, I still think they should beat the Flyers here. The Flyers are not a great team. They're up and coming. They've got some really nice young pieces, but a guy like getting some value, like Michkov to score at plus 235. Like, I think give us 2-3 months, Huss, we're going to see on a nightly basis his number closer to like plus 150, plus 175. Like, this guy is going to be a guy that's going to be filling the score sheet this year. And I'm going to take it while we can get more value on him. Minus 133 to get a point. Give it a couple months. We're going to be seeing that at minus 200. Minus 250. Like, I think this is how good this kid is.
Yeah, no, he he's an absolute stud. Magic hands. And I got some Flyer friends, some friends that are Flyer fans, and they're finally seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with this guy who's getting out there. All right, so I'm just looking through the chat. Oh, Cowboy said Cowder was downgraded to 2 goals. Velarde plus 1. I did not know that. Thank you, Cowboy, for mentioning that here. But Big Maple, can we all just set our differences aside for a second and unite to talk about the Yankees?
Yes, we can.
Just about lights out. It's just about lights out. But we'll always have that electric performance from Fat Joe to begin the World Series last night. Man, Ice Cube in LA, Fat Joe. Hey, I'm here for it. It's been the dream series for Major League Baseball until now, when it might be over basically as soon as it gets started.
It's just the most baseball thing ever. You get the most intriguing matchup that Rob Manfred probably could have dreamed of. It's the 2 biggest cities in the U.S. It's 2 of the most iconic brands, and it's going to be over probably in 4 or 5 games. I saw a plus number beside the Dodgers yesterday, and even in Matt Owanik's face, who is a Yankees fan, I said, I got to bet this. How are we getting a plus number in front of the Dodgers? Jake and Matt were kind of well, it's do or die. And I said, I don't care. I'm taking the better team. And from what I can see from this Yankees team, like there's just nothing left. There's nothing left of this team. They're a defeated fan base. Aaron Judge should not even be allowed. Who was that guy
wearing 99?
Yeah, I was just going to say, he shouldn't even be like, he should have to come out in a blank white jersey. He has not earned his pinstripes yet. It is unbelievable how much this guy has crumbled, shriveled up like a raisin in the big moments. It is embarrassing, man. And I get it. You give Yankees fans a lot of shit for good reasons. One of the more insufferable fan bases that you can experience. But I do not blame them for getting upset and frustrated time and time again now that Aaron Judge continues to crumble. I'm betting. I think I got to bet the Dodgers here for the sweep, but I'm betting Aaron Judge under 1.5 bases at -147. A little more juicy than I want, but I'm just going to continue to fade Judge. I'm going to continue to fade the Yankees, and I'm going to be super happy here if the Dodgers do sweep and end the Yankees suffering here.
It's too bad. I mean, I'd love to see the Yankees win this game tonight just so we can get another game. Like, I don't think the series is getting back to LA. Like, if you were sitting there with, game 6 or 7 tickets, you might want to make some alternate plans. But that's where we're at. Oh, by the way, we were talking about Fleury. You're a pal, Matt Hyman. And Matt Hyman, yes, there's some questions as to whether I'll do another poker tourney drink review. That was a special one last time because it was the Mountain Dew Voodoo it's the mystery flavor. But there's a good chance I'll be at Sev at some point before the tourney. I will peruse, and maybe there's some new Mountain Dew or the Oreo flavored Coke Zero. If that's there, I mean, I might just do it for the people. Doesn't sound that great to me personally, but we'll do it. Anyways, if you did jump in the lock shop a little late tonight is the third lock shop poker tourney with EST and Winnipeg Sports Talk. So you get to Coolbet, click on poker, download the poker app, go into tourneys. You'll see a little magnifying glass there. If you just put in lock, it'll come up right away. Get registered. It gets going at 9 p.m. Winnipeg time, 8 p.m. in Edmonton tonight. I right now have the WST EST belt for being the last man standing. Obviously, we've got the bounties going tonight. So if you did it before, I'm sure you're probably running with us again. If you missed the first couple, join us tonight. It's gonna be a heck of a lot of fun. All right, let's get to some NFL talk. And I did see the only thing that didn't happen for me on the weekend, Pat, was the Chiefs in just epic Chiefs form go up by 2 touchdowns and say, you know what, we don't mind just letting Gardner Minshew run down. Just a little confidence builder for Oakland. Get that late touchdown and a stupid backdoor cover. Other than that, though, there was a lot of chalk this week. We saw some massive favorites cover, with the exception of two, actually, the Jets. But the Jets have no business being. You know that they've scored 2 less points than they did up until this point with Zach Wilson last year and have that same 2-6 record? Wow, how the mighty have fallen. But the team, and I was there in the morning seeing Rex Ryan look at all of us and tell us the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the NFL. They've been the best team over the last year, completely ignoring the fact that in the last year, they've lost to Kansas City twice. They go in and lose to the Cleveland Browns. And credit where credit is due, the Browns looked a hell of a lot better than without the anchor of the franchise, Deshaun Watson, in the lineup. And Jameis was great for the most part. Now, he always is guaranteed to make 1 or 2 terrible decisions and terrible throws. And he actually did it on that final drive. But Kyle Hamilton dropped it. Dropped it. And then they roll in and get it done. I am pumped. My old pal Andy McNamara, hardcore Browns fans, he finally got his video glorious, afterwards. Their season's done anyways. But I mean, I don't know. If you're the Haslams, I have no doubt that these decisions keeping Deshaun Watson in as long as they had was not done by the coach. And it might not have even been the GM. It was probably the ownership saying, how bad do we look if we trade all this draft capital, we give him this contract that everyone in the NFL was pissed off about, and then just walk off the guy still with another however many $100 million that they owe him. But it's very clear. He was the worst quarterback in the National Football League by any measure, Pat. And you get Jameis in there, and the next thing you know, he's eating a W. They ate the W against the Ravens. So please spare me all the talk about the Ravens. Are they a good team? Yes. Can they beat just about anybody? For sure. They're not consistent enough, and they often play down to their opponents. And that's why they've lost to the Browns and lost to the Raiders this year, in addition to losing to the Chiefs overall in the first game of the season.
I'm going to bury Horowitz myself here because my bet of the week was Browns plus 8.5. And I'm kicking myself for not going money line. Let's be honest. I didn't think that there was really a good chance that they could win, but it was way too many points. There was a black cloud just hovering over that franchise for how long? Forever. But this year, especially with Deshaun Watson, say what you will, what those players said in the locker room after about how they were, sick to their stomach about the fans booing him and how they still had faith in him and they were hoping that everything is okay. Maybe they did mean that, but one thing that they knew for sure was not the case, that guy was going to give them the best chance to win. And Jameis Winston, one of the most electric personalities in the NFL, the way he plays, he's a quote machine. He's an unwavering, unwavering doubt. Like that, his pregame, his postgame, it was unbelievable. The way he plays, like you said, like it's Jekyll and Hyde. He could throw 4 touchdowns, but he's also probably going to throw 4 interceptions. This is a guy that went 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. But the guys in that locker room love him. And you could tell that they went out and played for him, and they knew that he was going to give it his all. He was not going to back down. And I think it gives the Browns a little bit of a bump. I think, unfortunately, it actually might make this team in no man's land. I'm not saying they're going to run the table and make the playoffs here, but I think that they'll probably win some games here with Winston and probably play themselves out of a top pick to get a guy like maybe Sanders as your quarterback. Because let's be honest, they need a quarterback. Deshaun's not their guy. Winston might be their guy for this year, next year. They need a guy for the future. And I think this might actually – it's great to see the fan base win. It's great to see things turn around. But ultimately, it might actually have been better for this team just to continue to lose and get QB1. And maybe I'm just blinded by the Jameis lights here. But I think that this team, looking at their schedule, they might be able to string some wins here and not be a bottom feeder for the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, it's now a 2-horse race for the number 1 overall pick between the Panthers, who at least have their pick this year, and the Tennessee Titans, who are taking on water right now.
Oh my God!
The Panthers have 1 extra loss. They haven't had their bye week, so they're 1-7. But then you look at the 2-win teams right now. Remember when the Saints were 2-0? And they killed the Cowboys, and everyone thought, oh my God, this team's amazing. They are garbage. They're 2-6 right now. The Giants, after their loss last night, 2-6. The Raiders, 2-6. Jacksonville, 2-6. And the Cleveland Browns, 2-6. Jets, 2-6. Patriots, 2-6. That's just so funny for a minute, just to say the New York Jets with the Dodgers and all type are tied with the Patriots, Browns, Jags, Raiders, Giants, Saints at 2-6.
You know what? I know both of us are guys that have hated the Patriots and have had a rivalry with that team for a very long time. But it is so funny seeing those two teams with the same record right now, this is probably the lowest expectations have been for the Patriots in 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
And on the flip side, this is probably the highest expectations the Jets have had in 15 to 20 years. And they have the same damn record, and it is awesome. I'm loving every second of it. But the beauty of this is normally, like, don't want to see crappy teams in primetime. We still have to see so much of that god-awful football team get embarrassed. They're up again against the Texans, which they're only 2-point favorites, which I don't understand, maybe because
how the hell are the Texans? Let me just make sure. The Texans are 6-2.
Yeah.
And the Jets are 2-6.
But I get it. Like the Texans are very banged up right now. I still don't care. How is that only a 2-point spread? I get it. They're on the road. They lose Diggs. It sounds like he might be out for a long time, probably the end of the year for him, which sucks because they're a team that's already battling injuries. But we just said it. This Jets team could be picking in the top 5 at the end of the year. This is a horrendous team. This is a bad football team, and I might have to place a bet right now. Houston Texans plus 105 on the money line. Like, that's crazy.
I gotta think that gets down as we get closer to the game. People realize, wait a second, the 2-6 Jets are laying points at home. Excuse me. By the way, the NFL odds page looks amazing with the logos now beside all the teams. This is sharp. Here's their lines right now. As we mentioned, Jets laying 2 for the Thursday nighter on Halloween. Cowboys, Falcons in Atlanta. Atlanta's 2.5-point favorites. Big win over Tampa last week. They were in total control of that AFC South. The Broncos at the Ravens. Ravens, 9.5-point favorites. We'll see about that this week. Denver's defense is still really good. I mean, obviously, plus 400 for Denver on the money line. Bills, 6-point favorites at home to the Dolphins. They already smashed Miami this year, in Miami. I mean, the Bills have been really impressive, to be honest with you. I mean, with what the guys that they lost, people think, oh, this is a 3-horse race. Everyone was getting on the Jets to win the division. No, it's still Buffalo and then everybody else. They're 6-point favorites. Okay, here's another one. We just mentioned these teams at the bottom. And I mean, I don't know what it would take to get somebody to tune into this game, or even worse, buy a ticket to it. But
yeah,
we've got the 2-6 Saints at the 1-7 Panthers, and the Saints are laying 7 on the road. That's probably a stay away. I mean, we probably shouldn't even talk about this game.
No,
but
Huss, if those guys were playing in my backyard, I'd draw the blinds. Like you couldn't pay me to watch that game.
The Bengals laying 7.5 at home against the Raiders. Let me say one thing about the Raiders after watching them in person on the weekend. Listen, their Kolesko's got some work to do, like on the roster overall. But they've got an elite pass rusher in Max Crosby. And the funniest thing is, Pat, at the game too, like 90% of Raider jerseys there are number 98. Like there's not really anyone else. Like now that Adams is gone, I mean, like if you're a Raider fan, like who do you get? Like no one expects Minshew to be around very long. Okay, I was bringing up to this. So they've got their stud 98. Brock Bowers is the truth. He's
legit, man.
Awesome. And he is basically their entire receiving threat. Him. I mean, there was a couple other plays that those guys made. Jacoby Myers was actually not too bad in that game, but I was really impressed with Brock Bowers. And it kind of reminded me, like they've got their Chris Jones. And listen, I'm not saying that Max Crosby is Chris Jones, but he's one of the best in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Brock Bowers looks like he is a young Travis Kelce. I mean, like he is a guy that is going to be that involved in that offense. And if they can get a quarterback, which is why it might be good for the Raiders just to be 2-6 and to take their lumps right now, because if they could actually get a difference-making quarterback of the future in the draft this year, I think in a year or two, we might be talking about a Raider team that could be there with the Chargers, and who knows how far the Broncos come. And maybe the AFC West gets competitive again because, I mean, this is just the same old thing. It's going to be 9 in a row again this year. But the Raiders, and listen, they do play hard. I mean, but 7.5 point dogs to Cincinnati, who got waxed by Philly. And I heard just before, how does T. Higgins get hurt at the end of Friday practice?
I have no idea. He's on my fantasy team. Like the Bengals are on my shit list. They're on the suspended list. I was starting to believe in them. I placed a future on Joe Burrow, but after last week, I'm done with them. I'm absolutely just done with them. So I think I'm going to ride with the Raiders. Bengals probably win the game, but like that defense is awful. And you're right. Brock Bowers, 11th in the NFL in receiving yards as a rookie tight end. That's unheard of. That's absolutely unheard of. And you mentioned a quarterback. Like if they can somehow get a top 2-3 pick, and depending on who's picking, Shedeur Sanders in Las Vegas. Could you imagine that?
That's the fit. That is the fit. Now, I have no idea whether he's going to be good at the NFL level. I know he's going to bring – I'm just imagining bringing that guy into your organization as like a top pick, giving them money, like all the noise and drama and stuff that comes around with them.
Oh, yeah.
I would – there's a little buyer beware in me. Hey, just before we move on to these other games, here are the list of winless teams at home in the NFL. The Panthers are 0-3. The Giants are 0-4. The Cowboys are 0-3 at home.
Wow, that's crazy.
The Tennessee Titans are 0-3. The only other winless team in the NFL at home, Cincinnati, 0-4. They're 3-1 on the road. They have not won at home yet this year. And that's a big reason why they're sitting there at 3-5.
Wow.
Anyways, back to these lines for this weekend. The Chargers are in Cleveland to take on the Browns. People believe again in the Browns. Chargers only 2-point favorites. Those 1-6 Titans are laying 3.5 points at home as favorites. You know they're playing another terrible team. That's the Patriots. That game is right there with Saints Panthers on the unwatchable list. You got the Bears coming off a pretty tough way to lose. Sure, you guys talked about this, but you saw that video number 29.
Oh yes, we talked about it.
Well, who was that guy? Do you remember his name?
I forget his name. He's
his name is Moron. As far as I'm concerned.
Huss, we said he would have been better off turning his back and continuing to taunt the fans. Because he's the idiot who ended up tipping that ball in the end zone.
Dude, the whole thing is, I mean,
so Bearsy though.
I haven't checked out. I haven't listened to Pardon My Take yesterday. From yesterday's show, but I'm gonna have to catch up on that tonight because, of course, it was Commanders and Bears, and for it to finish that way, wow. Anyways, Arizona a 1-point favorite at home to the Bears. The Eagles -7.5 home to Jacksonville. The Rams are 1.5-point favorites in Seattle against the Seahawks. The Sunday nighter, and this was flexed because the original game that was supposed to be, I believe, what game?
It was a bad game to like not a great game. I was kind of confused by the flex, to be honest. It's definitely a better game than what it was. I'm trying to remember what game
protected game was probably the Seahawks. Anyways, it's the Colts and the Vikings. The Vikings are a 5.5-point favorites. Looks like Flacco is going to go. As bad as Anthony Richardson's 2 for 15 stat line and in the first half and 10 of 32. And by the way, his completion percentage is 44% on the year. The only thing that looked worse was him taking himself out of the game.
Oh, we talked about it yesterday.
When you do that, I mean, you want to talk about losing a locker room. Although I'm sure people were happy about it because I think most of the guys have realized they've got a better chance to win with Joey Elite.
Us on that note, because I read it out yesterday. I know you'll get a kick out of this. Lowest completion percentage in a season among qualified QBs over the last 20 years. Anthony Richardson, you mentioned it, 44.4%. Tim Tebow in 2011, 46.5%. Jamarcus Russell in 2009, 48.8%. And J.P. Lossman in 2005, 49.6%. That is elite company that you do not want to be with. Yuck.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why they're 5-point dogs right in that Vegas zone against the Minnesota Vikings. And then Chiefs at Arrowhead Monday night, home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll get the partner parlay up. I'm not sure. It'll probably be in the combo cards, but if it's not there, check out the exclusives. Geez, we've gone long. Patty, I will look forward to talking to you tonight. And lock shoppers, WSTers, ESTers, join us tonight, 8 p.m. in Edmonton, 9 p.m. in Winnipeg, the third Coolbet Poker Tourney. 20 euros comes out to $30 Canadian, basically. Download the poker app. Click on poker, download the poker app. Great platform for playing. Click on tournaments. There's a little magnifying glass. Just type in lock. It'll come up. Register for that. We will see you tonight and watch who you come for, even if there's a bounty on their head. Patty, thanks so much for doing this, pal. We may be doing this again tomorrow, depending on how Dusty's situation is, but I'll definitely be back tomorrow. We'll see. Hopefully we're patting ourselves on the back, Barry Horowitz style, for a winner in hockey tonight. Again, we're going Minnesota, Montreal, and the Rangers all on the money line. That'll be up in the exclusives. We'll see you tonight for the poker tourney, everybody. We'll turn it back to EST programming. And if you're around our part, we got to break down this Jets-Leafs game and much more coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk next.